Alright, what's going on everybody? Anime Rainbow back with another episode. Today we will be discussing Vice Captain Hoshina and his fight with Daikaiju number 12. Now, this was one of the more interesting fights that went down. I would argue that the fight between Kikoru and Kaiju number 15 and this fight between Hoshina and Daikaiju number 12 were definitely the longest and the more interesting of the fights. What made this fight so interesting is that Hoshina was outmatched to almost the same degree that Narumi was against Daikaiju number 11. The only difference between this fight and that fight is that this fight with number 12 is the direct upgrade to Daikaiju number 10. And if you remember Daikaiju number 10, he was the first Daikaiju we were introduced to. He was the one that launched the aerial attack with the Wavering Kaiju onto the Tachikawa base. He's the one that fought Hoshina the first time. He was then captured. We thought he was killed. He wasn't. He was turned into a weapon for Hoshina. And this is the first time that we are debuting with that weapon against a kaiju of significant power level and a fortitude level, right? But the problem is that this was the replacement for number 10. So it's better in every way. I mean, just its ability to adapt alone is problematic for Hoshina in the regards that he can't get the upper hand. And again, these kaiju were made specifically to be hard counters to whoever they were fighting against. So while number 12 might not have been a problem for, let's say, Kafka, it's a problem for Hoshina because Hoshina is a blade specialist, a dual blade specialist, and this is a kaiju that, well, initially specialized in just dual blades, but then we see as this whole entire fight progresses, like, no, it can adapt to just about any fighting style. So in terms of ability, this kaiju doesn't have the craziest set of abilities. What I mean by that is that it's not going to be firing off explosions, rockets, energy pulses, nothing like that. Like I said, it's a blade specialist, right? It has regeneration, it has extreme speed, power, intelligence, adaptability. Its ability to adapt could not have been understated. It didn't matter what technique Hoshina was using, didn't matter what he learned in the Defense Force, didn't matter what he learned, with his family just over the course of his upbringing. Number 12 was 100% handing Hoshina his ass. So eventually we get to a point to where Hoshina has to make a decision, right? Do I continue to use the two sword style, or do I switch back to a sword style that I've never used before? And the sword style he's referring to is the one sword style. Now we learn that this is the preferred method of his older brother. He is not the best at it, he's better at dual blades, but because number 12 is programmed with Hoshina's fighting style, because he has the memories of Isayo, he knows how he fights, he has to switch it up. And I guess Hoshina never fought against Isayo with the one sword style, that he never asked to see it or anything like that, so it's always just been something that he kept in the wraps. He can't do that anymore. So he switches to the one sword style. That works a little bit. He was able to get some hits in, but again, this thing can regenerate. These slashes weren't deep enough. Unless you get to the core, it doesn't matter what you cut off, honestly. And because some of these Daikaiju are able to move their core around, it makes this harder than what it needs to be. But for the most part, and I say this with earnesty, thank God he was able to make a katana, like a long katana, from the remains of Daikaiju number 10. But sadly, it doesn't matter how much physical training you have done. What really seems to matter is your fortitude output level. It doesn't matter how much, because Hoshina, I would imagine, in base form, could throw hands with the best of them. But considering him and number 10 never seemed to have got on one page with what it is that they want to do, they were never able to supersede, I think, 80% fortitude output or 83% fortitude output, something like that. And that's just not enough to deal with this situation. So a good chunk of the chapter was them trying to really just like become one mind and one body, but they were constantly pulling each other in different directions. You have Kaiju number 10. You always know what he wants to do. He just wants to fight. Win, lose, or draw, he wants to fight, and he will do that to his dying breath. Hoshina, he's not like that. He's not a character like that. So it was becoming problematic to a point to where it could have gotten them both killed. And I think me, just like most other people, you might even be in this camp, you were cussing Kaiju number 10 clean out. You were reading those chapters like, Kaiju number 10 is going to get this man killed. If Kaiju number 10 gets this man killed, I'm going to, it'll be the first time I write an angry email to a mangaka. I'll tell you that right now. But they couldn't get on one accord, and you think it's because of Kaiju number 10, but then you keep reading and you find out no, this isn't Kaiju number 10's fault why they're stuck at 80%. This is Vice Captain Hoshina's fault why they're stuck at 80%. You see, because I'm guessing because he's a vice captain, he has to put on this facade, right? Like it's bigger than you type of conversation, right? Or you have a position of power, you have to exemplify yourself in such a manner. That bullshit, right? That apparently that just wasn't who Hoshina used to be back in the day. He is a man who loved to fight, and him trying to suppress that, they weren't able to synchronize, right? Because he's more similar to Kaiju number 10 than what he gives him credit for. And I believe over the course of this entire arc between Hoshina and number 12, I think that's actually brought up. We're more similar than we are different. And Hoshina just didn't want to accept that, but like, nah, like you're just as bloodthirsty as him. When they actually got down to the nitty gritty and they actually was like, all right, let's do this. And Hoshina embraced his true feelings. 97%, something like that. He was, I think he actually maxed out. And then he was able to get it all done. He was able to defeat the Daikaiju, but that only came from knowing who you were and synchronizing with your Daikaiju. Now, this was probably the easiest of the synchronizations. Kafka still hasn't synchronized with his. Kikoru hasn't had hers long enough, so they're still working on it. Narumi is probably there. Because at this point, he's creating his own abilities. We just don't know if he actually likes his Daikaiju or if the Daikaiju actually likes him. Kaiju number 10 seems to be fond of Narumi because Narumi is a lot like himself. So it makes more sense why they were able to synchronize quicker than, say, any other Daikaiju and Defense Force member pairing. And I do want to bring this up now because this is the second video that I've made on it. Even though they're at war with Kaiju number 9, Kaiju number 9 doesn't seem to be the biggest threat that these Defense Force members are actually facing. The biggest threat they seem to be facing is themselves, truth be told. Because even if they don't get hit a lot, even if they're not being bombarded with explosions, being slashed with katanas or put through a fucking wall, they run the risk of overheating so quickly, it's actually insane. Maybe if they weren't fighting, it wouldn't be that bad, but the minute they get into combat, every time, without fail, the scientist people are like, oh, their suit overheats, their suit's overheating, they're overheating, you gotta relax, they don't got much longer, they're overheating. Why don't y'all improve the fucking suits? Because it's a problem for everybody, and the stronger you are, the quicker your suit runs out. Y'all need to upgrade your base suit model or something. Put some fucking AC units in there or something, because that seems to take these Defense Force members out quicker than a Daikaiju. Hoshina and Narumi are exhausted, not because they took an exuberant amount of attacks, or they're overheated. So that's my ramble. I don't want to ramble too much. I think I've rambled long enough. If you made it to the end, thank you. If you are new, go post ultra and smash that subscribe button. Lets me know you're rocking with the content that I put out on the channel. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Comment on the video your thoughts about what you think is going on, how you like this fight. Do you think that Hoshina and Kaiju number 10 can make it work? Now that he's actually killed Kaiju number 12, are they actually going to take these Kaiju and make more numbered weapons? I would imagine, right? To the victors goes the spoils. So as of right now, they have Kaiju number 11 that they can make into a numbered weapon, and Kaiju number 12 that they can make into a numbered weapon, assuming Kaiju number 9 over the course of the next couple of chapters doesn't recover the bodies of these Daikaiju and go to rework them back at his lab in the cave. But let me know what y'all think. I will keep the content coming frequently as infrequent as humanly possible. And I'm out.